Hello, I'm speaking with Cahni Konig tonight on Talk Haunted to Me.
This is a dangerous group. The freaks that we're dealing with
Hello, Connie. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. It looks very bright and sunny. I know I said tonight. It's evening, so I'm gonna count it. But yeah, how
Stays brighter here longer.
yeah, we have that like really crazy storm that comes in for 5 minutes and then it goes away, right?
Yeah, for sure. We welcome that though.
Awesome. Oh yeah, definitely. So, definitely tell us about yourself. You are, I said earlier, like a Jill of all trades.
I'm a
So
lot.
yeah, yes, very much so. So tell us what you
Okay.
do.
So, um, I'll go kind of in order. So, I'm a paranormal investigator first and foremost. I've been doing that for, forever, pretty much, ever since I was a teenager off and on. I am a psychic medium. I am a hypnotherapist. So, I do a lot of past life regressions and things like that. I am a Reiki master. And I am a medicine woman. And that is, there's a lot of misconceptions about what is that. They think that it has to deal with like plant medicine and things like that. I don't utilize plant medicine. I use energetic medicine. So I am a shaman, a full Mesa carrier shaman. My lineage is the Incan Peruvian Caro lineage. And so I, have so many tools that I can utilize on investigations. And that was really, what drew me into doing all of these things, this like paranormal life. Even with the hypnotherapy, I've helped people with, recalling paranormal experiences, regressing people to alien abductions, people that have had PTSD from hauntings. I've helped them with that. So, I have like a haunted life, I guess you would say.
Right? Uh, that sounds like a TV show, right?
I know, right? My haunted life. It probably is a show.
Trademark if it's not already there. So
Right. It should
well,
be.
awesome. Yeah, you seem to have a lot of tools in your bag to be able to, not only investigate, but definitely help people with things, especially if they go wrong or if it's just something that's a little
For
unnerving.
sure.
So
The shamanic path really, I was really drawn to that because of the depossessions and the being able to move energy and house clearings and blessings and things like that. And that was really, really important to me because I did have, some traumatic experiences with the paranormal, and I couldn't find the help that I needed. And so I was like, okay, I'm trying all these things. Nothing is working. What am I supposed to do? And it just really inspired me to dive into something else and to keep learning so that I could be of service to other people. And of course, to spirits too. So that's kind of what led me on that path.
okay, that kind of ties into my first question, which is what experience or like certain thing that kind of got
What
you
happened to you, right?
right. Thank you. Yeah.
What happened to you to make you weird? In a good
Different,
way.
weird, whatever. We'll
Yeah,
go with
I
something.
don't look at, I don't look at weird as a bad word.
Yeah.
I embrace it. So, excuse me. I grew up with a father who was very much into metaphysics and karma and reincarnation and things like that and spirituality. And so, even from a young age, I knew that I had abilities. I could see things, I could feel things, but I was afraid because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was super, super drawn to anything creepy. I was watching all of the scary movies from a very, very young age. Um, And I kind of had a love-hate with it, like I would get terrified and I'd be afraid to go into the bathroom or to take a shower, and I'd be peeking out from behind the curtain and stuff like that. But at the same time, I couldn't get enough of it. And I remember getting books about cryptids and things like that. And I was just so fascinated by it. And I was very fortunate because my dad was really open to these things. And so I could talk to him about it. And I remember wondering why I was seeing like a haze around things and around people, and I didn't understand what it was. And turned out I was seeing auras. And I was, having some experiences from a very young age. One in particular was really, really scary. Something came into my room and I could see my bedroom door was open, and there was this really tall shadow figure. And I could see it had like really curly hair, and I could make out the build perfectly. And it had this menacing feeling, and I was like screaming and crying and freaking out. Like I couldn't get up and run into my parents' room because I would have to run past it. And finally my mom came in and she tried to make some sort of excuse, like my mirror reflection was bouncing off of hers, or I don't even know, something that parents try to do.
Right.
And when she turned off the light, it was gone. And I know what I saw, and I know what the feeling was. And so I knew that it was real. I knew, and nobody was going to tell me that it wasn't. And my mom didn't tell me that it wasn't real. My dad didn't tell me that it wasn't real. So I'm thankful for that. I had another experience where I went to bed and I woke up and I was in the hallway and somebody was next to me, but my feet were not touching the ground. And somebody was holding my hand, and I just heard in my head, don't look, it's okay, just relax. And so I remember I looked down at my parents' door and I just closed my eyes and I relaxed, and I had like a comforting sensation. And looking back, I feel like it was something angelic that was with me. I don't know if it was an out-of-body experience. I don't know what it was. I have no clue. And then, as I got older, I noticed that I was very sensitive to different energies, but I wasn't able to discern what was good and what was bad. It's kind of like, if it's different, it's bad. Something's going to happen. And one of my worst fears is that I was going to see something scary. Like I was going to see something in the hallway, like carrying a bloody head, threatening me or something like that. And I was like,
those horror movies came back, right?
Right. And I'm like, if I have that experience, I will probably pee my pants and die and just pee my pants some more, because I don't know what to do. Like my dad had taught me a little bit about protection and things like that, spiritual protection, but I don't think I was really doing it enough. But as I got older, all of a sudden I'm just like even more drawn to it. But I was stifling myself. I was blocking my abilities. And so, I'd be hanging out in the cemetery at night, and I'd be coercing my friends into going to check out, some crybaby bridge place, or, the place where the children that were killed push your car up the hill. And I was trying to debunk those things. And I actually found that on that hill, the one in Maryland where I grew up, the hill, like you can visibly see that it's going upward, but I put a level on it and the level was showing the opposite.
Right.
And I was like, how is this? I don't even know how it was happening. It was some sort of optical illusion.
Optical illusion,
right?
Yeah.
And, so I was trying to debunk things. Even as a teenager, I was very, very curious. Then I found a really big abandoned hospital when I was a teenager, and I started going there, and I had some crazy experiences there. And my first time there, I got poison ivy all over my face somehow, and I was with 10 other people, and somehow I'm the only one that ended up with poison ivy all over my face. So,
Wow.
So, that
I hear about
still,
that much on a paranormal investigation or a haunted location. Like, I got poison ivy, really?
So, we had to walk through a patch of, it was like, it was kind of like a little forest, but it was so strange because it was very small. Like
Mhm.
it just didn't, I think it was like there was some woods and then there was like an outskirt that like kind of came out. And so we went through this part here and that was on the end. And so it wasn't very dense. And somehow I ended up with poison ivy on my face, even though I don't remember touching anything. And, you
Right.
know, and it was like in my eye, on my face. That's just great,
Yeah.
kind of ruined my summer. So I kind of like hid in the shadows on my porch and people would come see me. Um, but I would go to cemeteries and I started noticing things like, for example, I was in a cemetery and my friend's grandmother had been buried there and she didn't know where her grave was. And so she said to me, I wish I knew where she was buried. And this was a huge cemetery. And somehow I walked right over to the grave and I just knew that that's where it was. And she was like floored. There were a few other times where I would go stand in front of a grave and I would be talking and then I would realize that it was the anniversary of that person's death that and I happened to be standing in front of their grave. So I started noticing that I was drawn to different things. Um, I did, some residentials as I got older and, went poking around as much as I possibly could. And then I stopped investigating for a little while. Unless, I went out of town someplace where, I thought something was haunted, I would try to go check it out, or I would, go creep around a local cemetery and stuff like that. So I did stop for a little. Um, and then I just felt like I had to get back. And I wasn't with a team for a very long time. I was just kind of solo and just doing whatever I could whenever I could. Um, and I became a hypnotherapist. I was very, very drawn to that. The whole past life regression thing, being able to help people, recall ET experiences and abductions and things like that. Super, super drawn to that. So, I actually, I had a corporate job for a little while, well, for a long while actually, and I was going crazy. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. And I'm looking around. I'm like, what's wrong with all these people? Like, they're fine with this. I don't know what's wrong with them. And I realized there's nothing wrong with them. It's me. I don't belong here.
Mhm.
I can't be here. And I have to figure out what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but this is not it. So I always said I wanted to talk for a living. And I was on Facebook and I was on some like meditation page, and this guy was talking about this program. I think it's called it's quantum jumping. And it's this meditation that you do, and you go to another version of yourself in a different dimension, and it's like in an alternate universe. So for example, if I want to sing and I don't feel like I'm a good singer, I can go to the version of me that is a singer and have her show me what I need to know. Or if
Mhm.
I want to speak Latin, I can go to the version of Connie that speaks Latin and have her teach me. And so I was really intrigued by this. And I started getting really into meditation and trying this out. And the guy that ran this whole program was talking about hypnotherapy. And he said, I'm offering this course. It's a weekend's worth of training. It's in Santa Barbara. It's in 2 weeks. And I really wanted to go, but I couldn't make it happen. It was in Santa Barbara. I'd have to pay for, all kinds of stuff. And it's just short notice. So I thought, okay, well, there has to be something closer. And that's when I found the school that I went to, which is the Florida Institute of Hypnotherapy. Now it's called the Interpersonal Institute of Hypnotherapy, I think. But the training was 9 months. It was not a weekend's worth of training. And
Right.
once I realized that, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I kind of lost faith in this little Facebook guy over here. Once I realized how deep this stuff goes, I'm like, there's no way I would have had a weekend's worth of training and been able to just go out and start doing this. So when I went through hypnotherapy school, I started connecting even more, and I started um, seeing spirits even more. And I was fine with it. I apologize, there's sirens in the background. Um,
Sorry.
I was fine. I was fine with it. I felt safe, and I was trusting myself a bit more. When it came to discernment, like, okay, this doesn't feel bad, so I'm more open to it. Because all the time when I was doing paranormal investigations, I'm like, I want to see something, but only when I'm with somebody else. I don't want to feel anything unless I'm with somebody else. So I had all these limitations, and I was just like trying to block myself, but have these experiences at the same time. And it doesn't work that way. So um, I went through hypnotherapy school. I made a huge personal transformation, and I opened my office, and my office was very, very haunted. And um, my first experience with that, I was going down the hallway back to my office from the kitchen. This office used to be a house. There were maybe 8 or 9 rooms in there, and I was the only one in the building. The building is generally super, super quiet. And I'm just, walking along, and all of a sudden, right in front of me, there's a man, and I'm seeing him in my mind's eye. And it stopped me in my tracks, and I could see the fibers in his clothes. That's how clear this was. I could see his shoes. I couldn't see his face, but I knew how tall he was. I knew how old he was. And it just stunned me. And I went back into my office, and I thought to myself, okay, this happened when I was by myself, and I was okay. Nothing bad happened. Everything's fine. So, I was like, this is good. If this is how it's going to be, then I'm fine. I'm fine if I'm alone and I see stuff. A few days later, I was putting the key in the door to my office, and my landlord's office was next to it. And I look over, and I see this like weird, misty figure thing that was kind of brownish. And it's right in front of his door. And I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, what is that? So I put my key in the door, and I turned the key, and I made some noise, and it looks at me. And when it looks at me, I'm just looking at it, and it looked at me, and it went like that, like I startled it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this is strange. So I go in my office, and I thought, okay, well, not a big deal. Everything's fine. That was kind of weird. Well, from that point on, it started to terrorize me because he knew that I could see him. He was threatening. He was mentally ill. He, like the feelings that he would give me, it was just sick. It was threatening. It was very intimidating, and I didn't know what to do. And so I was scared. And so I'm like, okay, this is new for me to be terrorized by something. So I immediately was like, you're not allowed in my office. You're not going to bother me when I'm with clients. And I started asserting my boundaries, even though I was scared, but I was kind of worried about that. I didn't want something to come into my office and disrupt me and scare other people and stuff like that. And it wouldn't come in. It would come in the doorway if the door was open, and it would stare at me from the doorway. Um, but other than that, he would not come in. And it got worse and worse and worse. And it got so bad that I could not be in the building by myself. If there were other people in the building, as soon as they left, I could tell. I could feel it. It's like I could feel it's like dun, 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 like everything just closing in on you.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there at my computer. I'm like, oh, this isn't fun. What do I do now? Like, do I have to jump out the window? I don't know. So I just started going outside between clients, and I wouldn't even stay in the office. I would just go outside, wait for the next one. I would make sure at the end of the day, I just walked out with somebody because I didn't want to be in there alone. And there was one time, it was a Friday afternoon or Friday evening. It was starting to get dark, and I had a client, and he was in a hurry to leave. And he's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize what time it was. I got to get out of here. And before I could say like, oh, hang on, I'm going to grab my purse, he took off. And I'm just like, okay. So I grabbed my phone because I was like, I need a distraction while I go wash my hands and, I'll just settle everything up. So I get on the phone and I'm just talking and, I feel fine. I walk into the bathroom, I look out in the hallway and I see a flash of this same guy. And I hear in my head, get the F out. I'm going to kill you. And, and I'm like, oh my God. So
Right.
I literally ran in my office, grabbed my purse and just took off. And I was like freaked out. So I was like, okay, I have to do something. I can't just let this go. And, a few people are like, why don't you move? And I was like, I can't. Like, I don't feel like that's the answer. I don't feel like I'm supposed to run from this. So I'm in there and I'm chanting and I'm throwing salt and I'm burning sage and I'm burning charcoal. And I'm like, in the name of Jesus and everybody and Tom Cruise and whoever I can think of, like, you have to go and go into the light. And, I'm just doing anything,
Was it
everything.
the scene from was it The Mummy or whatever, the Brendan Fraser Mummy, where he starts pulling like different symbols?
Yes.
Starts like
He's
saying
like,
different ones.
this
Yeah.
one, cross, he's like pulling like all his medals and medallions and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Pretty much. I'm like spritzing holy water, I'm just like trying everything. And I'm going to all of these metaphysical stores. I'm like, what do I do? And they're like telling me what to do. And it just doesn't work. And I'm like, how does this not work? And so I'm like, is there something that I'm missing? What am I supposed to do? So then I said, okay, I'm going to do an investigation. Like, let me just do an investigation and just, make things worse because I have no solution. So
Right.
Right before the investigation, it was the Sunday before, I had a client come in. And I had been having this weird issue where I was having very intrusive thoughts. And it's like I'd be working with the client and all of a sudden I would feel the need to like say something terrible to them. And it never actually happened, but I'm having these crazy thoughts and it was kind of creeping me out. And so I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm possessed. I don't know what's going on. So this woman comes in on a Sunday and she sits down and she says, I was nervous about coming in here. And I said, oh no, we're going to have a great session. And she says, no, it's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the building. And I was like, okay. I said, there's something going on here and I don't know what to do. And she said, well, I'm a medium. And I said, okay, good. The intrusive thoughts started coming a little bit. And I didn't say anything because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to freak her out and be like, yeah, I think I'm becoming possessed. I started hearing screaming in the hallway, like tortured, disembodied screams. And disembodied screams have a very distinct sound. If people, if you guys haven't heard it, it sounds the way it does on TV. It has this weird tone to it. And I like froze and I looked at her and she looked at me and she says, oh, you can hear. I said, what do you mean? Of course I can hear. You didn't just hear that? And she said, you're hearing here. You're hearing with clairaudience. That was not audible. And I was like, okay, I don't want that. And so I literally got up, was pacing around my office because I was mad. You know how in a movie where it's like they start having flashbacks of things that they were blocking out and it's like, these traumas were coming back. And I started having flashbacks of times when I was in the office hearing these sounds and I was making excuses for it, but I really believed it. Like, oh, that's the modem. Oh, that's a rat, oh, that's just, the electrical or, whatever the case may be. But I was
You were connecting
buying
the
what I was
dots.
saying. Yeah, I was buying what I was saying because had I realized what that was, I don't even know what would have happened at that point in time because I was freaked out as it was that this was happening because I didn't want to hear that stuff. it's screaming and wailing in the hallway. It's screaming my name. That's really violating when something is wailing and screaming your name in your place. If that happens when I'm on an investigation somewhere, cool. I don't really want it to happen in my house.
Yeah.
So, um, I didn't know what to do at that point, and it went on for about 6 hours. And she's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do we do? And I said, God forbid one of us has to go to the bathroom. And so finally I was just like, well, I want to do this session. I want to do it. And so she was scared, and she's like, okay, all right, let's try this. I start doing the session. I can see the words that I'm going to say as I'm saying them a lot of the time, because I say it all the time, for specific things. And this was a very specific thing that she was coming to me for. So I can see what I'm going to say. And then all of a sudden I see all these words, and it's like terrible, terrible. Like I was going to say terrible things to this woman. And I see it in my mind, and it's like, I'm getting closer and closer and closer to it. And I'm like fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And finally I get to it, and I was able to overcome it and not say it. And when that happened, all the craziness stopped, the wailing stopped, the heaviness went away. It's kind of like I won, right? So we did the session. Afterwards, she noticed, and she even said, like, the point that she felt it get lighter. And I didn't tell her what had happened because I was embarrassed. I want to be like, oh yeah, it's trying to possess me, but I fought it off.
Right.
So she left, and then I took off for a few days because I was like, I don't know if it's getting worse because it knows that I'm about to do an investigation, but I wanted to try to get to the bottom of it and see if I could make sense of it. So I did an investigation with some people, and we saw some craziness. Like, he actually came in to the doorway, and it's pitch black, and it's just blacker than black. And he's there, and we could see him going down the hallway and stuff. And it was really, really cool. But, then I'm like, now what? What do we do? Like, I can't just keep going on like this. And this is a situation where I literally don't feel safe. So a good friend of mine, she knew a medium. And at that time, I was not a practicing medium. I didn't know what I was. I knew I was
Right.
something, but I didn't know what. And she brought her friend over, didn't tell her anything. And her friend came and sat down, and she's like, he's pissed. And I was like, yeah, he is. I don't know what to do. So she said that her spirit guides took him outside. And I said, well, what are they doing? And she said, I don't know. And I said, are they, spiritual beatdown? Like, what's going on? Are they like chewing him out? Like, are they talking? And she said, I have no clue. And I said, okay. I was also being touched in my office. Something was going like this to me on a regular basis, but it was very like calming. And I didn't feel like it was him. Come to find out, it was my grandmother, and she was trying to give me some reassurance that everything was going to be okay. And
Right.
but that was very sweet. So she told me that, and that made me feel good. And I felt that that was right. And I told her, I was like, look, like, I think like I'm becoming possessed, and I don't know what to do. And I told her, and she started laughing, and she said, you're a trance medium. They speak through you. And I was like, wait, what? And I didn't really know, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that was like. And she said, you're in control of that. If you don't want them to do that, don't let them do that. And
Yeah.
so I said, okay. So from that moment on, it's never been intrusive like that. I am always in control of it. So, I was empowered by that. And I'm very grateful that she told me that's what that was, because, I'm sitting here, I'm like, do I need to go to like the psychiatrist? Like, what do I need to do? I don't want this to happen. I thought I was becoming like schizophrenic, or maybe, I was going to have Tourette's or something, because it was really, really strong. So come to find out, this man was attached to my landlord. My landlord was a forensic psychologist, and he worked over at the jail. He had to write reports saying if people were fit for trial. This man was not fit for trial. He was criminally insane. I knew that right off the bat, but I didn't put two and two together like, hello, criminally insane forensic psychologist. It just didn't click in my head.
Yeah.
So my landlord must have written a report and botched it. That's the only thing I can think of. And, or maybe, this guy felt slighted by him in some way, shape, or form, and he must have died and decided to come after him. And, my landlord, he was very, very black and white. I was not about to tell him what I was experiencing. That would not have been a good thing. So he started tormenting me because I was aware of him. And so he thought by getting to me, it'd get to him. Can you still hear me? My computer's telling me there's an issue.
Yeah, I got you again.
Okay. So, the landlord, was just completely oblivious to all of this. The spirit guides told the man, you're not this person anymore, and you're choosing to trap yourself in this office in Florida to torment this guy that doesn't realize what happened. He didn't do this to you on purpose, but you're free. So you don't have to be here anymore. You're not mentally ill. You're not criminally insane. You're free. And he left. And I was shocked. It was really that simple. And I had tried to talk to him before and tell him, go into the light and go find your family. And, people are waiting. He didn't care. He didn't want to hear it from me. So, from that point on, I was like, I have to do something. So I started developing my mediumship. I started, I had a few mentors that were helping me out and teaching me different things and teaching me different techniques. And that's what I needed. I needed some guidance because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know, sometimes a lot of times with mediumship, and I teach others about it as well, there's a lot of misconceptions about what it feels like and how you receive information and things like that. And so I wanted to work with somebody closely so that they could kind of guide me along on that. Not everybody wants to take classes and things like that, and you don't have to do that, but for me, it's what I felt I needed to do. So I started developing the mediumship. I learned spirit release therapy. So, that could help if there's an entity attachment and things like that. And it ends up kind of being like a therapy session for the spirit. So I learned how to do that, but something was just kind of inside of me. Like there's more to it. There's other things that you can learn. There's other things that you can do. There's more. And so I just kind of felt like I wasn't done. I was like, okay, I learned all these great things, but that's not it. That's not the end of the road. And one of my very good friends, and she's also my business partner, Barbara Bolness, she, came across a shamanic program, shamanic training. And, there's different types of training and things like this. This particular training is approved by the Peruvian shaman to be taught in the West. They want it to be brought to the West. So,
Right.
this is definitely, something that they want and they welcome. So I liked that. And this was a very in-depth training. And, I learned all kinds of different things. I do deep possessions, as we call them, in a completely different way. And so, that doesn't necessarily have to mean it's demonic. But, it can be, just a spirit. It can be, a loved one that's attached to you. It can be anything. And it's compassionate. It is a compassionate deep possession. So it's very different. And, I do things like soul retrievals. We all lose soul fragments. And, I retrieve them for people. It's up to them to hold it. When I do any type of healing work, whether it's hypnotherapy or shamanic or, Reiki, I don't do a whole lot of Reiki anymore, but it's up to the recipient to do whatever is necessary to hold the work. So when people come to me and they're like, I need you to heal me and I need you to fix me, I always tell them it doesn't work that way. Like, I can't just wave a magic wand and fix you. You have to take some responsibility for that and be willing to work with what I give you so that you can hold what it is that I'm doing for you. And, it does take work, to hold on to these soul fragments and things like that. Um, I work in the shadows, literally. So I do a lot of spiritual protection. And I think that that is something that is extremely important in the paranormal community. And people don't really talk about it as often as I think they should. When I, was doing investigations throughout many, 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 many years, people never said, like, hey, you need to do some kind of spiritual protection. Even when I would go on ghost tours or, um, do group investigations and things like that, it was rarely, if ever, brought up to do some form of spiritual protection.
Right.
And now knowing what I know, it's really important. I advise people to do it even before they do meditation or any type of spiritual work. It's important to do that. And just to, have boundaries with your energy. We don't want to be picking things up, everywhere and leaving things behind. So it's natural for us to do that. But when we have our spiritual boundaries, it protects us as much as it possibly can. So, I do something it's called shamanic journeying. And so literally, you are traveling into the non-ordinary reality, as we call it. And that is heaven, the upper world. That is middle world, which is similar to remote viewing. But you can, of course, like with remote viewing, you can kind of jump timelines. You can go to different times, and that's very helpful in investigations because sometimes I have to go meet a spirit, where they were when they were living and find out what was going on. I do work in the lower world, which is exactly what it sounds like. So I do a lot of work down there,
Yeah.
but I'm very, very protected. So, I do a lot of different things. And even, um, and, I'm sorry, I'm like getting off track. This whole thing with this guy in my office inspired me to help others because, I've heard people say like, "Oh, you need to banish him." And where do you banish them to? I was part of a team and we're doing a house clearing and I told them, I said, this spirit is in the attic and it's not wanting to leave. And all of a sudden they're like, well, we have to do a banishment. And I'm like, but what is that? Like, what if this is somebody's grandmother? Where are you banishing her to? Are you banishing
Right.
her just outside of the house or to another dimension? Like, that doesn't make sense. And shouldn't we be helping? We want to help them. So it led me down this path, and I feel very fortunate because I was able to do it. And I feel very fortunate because I do feel like I make a difference, as much as I possibly can. I know I'm just like one little person over here, but I also try to teach other people and let other people know, like, I'm not some like super special anomaly. Everything that I do can be learned. Even mediumship, it can be learned. So if anybody wants to do anything that I know how to do or things that I don't know how to do, you can do that. It's just skills. It's just different tools that I have. And it just so happens that I use these in my everyday life and in my business. So that's pretty much that's pretty much the long story in a shortened version.
Oh, it was great. It actually answered like 3 of my questions that I had for you. So
Can you see me? Is the lighting okay? Is it weird?
yeah, it's actually got like a little cool effect. So like part of your
Okay.
face is dark, but you got the rest over there. So it's pretty
Okay.
interesting. Like an album cover or something. So
Cool.
um yeah, so it definitely kind of gets me to, kind of what brought you to doing all this stuff and trying to help. And then, I had a question about crazy stories and of hauntings or anything you wanted to share. And I mean, that's pretty amazing story.
I've got
So,
more too.
right.
We all do.
Um, yeah, I mean, if you want to tell me anything like on just an investigation, not necessarily, I guess, personal.
So this
Um,
this was interesting.
mhm.
I was in New Orleans and I was on a tour and I was not able to do, a real official investigation. The person that I was with at the time she was not like really into doing that, and I didn't want to freak her out too bad. But she was like,
Right.
"Let's do a cemetery tour," and I was like, "Okay," it's
Yeah.
like kind of like meeting in the middle.
Twist my arm
And
there.
so we go to the Katrina Memorial.
Mhm.
And the Katrina Memorial, is where they have interred people that were unclaimed. And so they have like a few mausoleums, and it's outside. And it's at, is it Charity Hospital? I think it's Charity Hospital Cemetery. I think that's what it's called. And there's like a huge, because there's cemeteries everywhere. There's also a huge cemetery over to the left. And the tour guide, he knew what I did, and he said, "Do you want to go to the most haunted part?" And I was like, "Of course."
Yeah.
So he leads me back through like an opening in these bushes, and then he takes me to this chain link fence, and he says, "Okay, you're going to crawl under the fence." And of course there's a no trespassing sign, right? And I'm like, am I gonna like get arrested in New Orleans? And he's like, no, don't worry about it. It's okay because we're allowed to be here. I'm allowed to be here. Okay, that's fine. So crawl under the fence, and then you're gonna walk across this huge field. And he said, but be careful because that field is basically a mass grave where they put people with yellow fever back in the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so walk over the field, and you'll see a tree line in the back. Walk towards the tree line and you'll see a giant cross. When you see the giant cross, look past it and there is a tree, and it's called the suicide tree. And apparently, people would go and commit suicide there. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if that's just like an urban legend or if it's actual fact that this happened. So I jump under the fence and I get up and I realize nobody else is coming with me, right? So I'm just
Right.
like, well, I've already committed. The field was the size of a football field. It was huge. It was massive. I mean, maybe it wasn't that big, but it felt that big, and I was walking for a long time. And I'm just, looking at my surroundings. There's a giant cemetery over here. I'm trying to make sure I don't like trip, or it's pitch black. I see the tree line. I see the giant cross. And as I get closer, all of a sudden, I get this overwhelming feeling. It was as if there were 20 people doing a ritual and you walk in on them. And and they're like, turning and looking at you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? And I'm frozen at this point. I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, I can't move forward. I can't move backwards. What am I supposed to do? Like, I'm just sitting here and I'm like, this doesn't feel very good. I feel like I'm intruding and I feel like this is not a good situation. So I just said, hey, oh, look. And now it lightened up when I said,
Wow.
hey.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to show you any disrespect. I wish you peace. And I would like to just turn around and leave and just leave you be. And, I'm not going to harm you or do anything like that. And as I said that, I took a step back and I felt all the heaviness like start to pull back, like, okay, like we'll let you go. So I turned. And as soon as I turned, that feeling completely went away. Completely went away. It was like
Right.
level 40. And then it was like nothing.
Yeah.
So I started walking back, and I didn't even feel the need to turn around. Like I felt like I was safe. I felt it felt like there's no need to look. You're good. which was strange. You know, if you felt that bad, you know, you probably want to look and make sure there's nothing behind you. So I go back and the tour guide, he says, "So how was it?" And I said, "Well, I felt like I didn't belong there and I was intruding and they were mad." And he's like, "Yeah, I took a group back there recently and we all felt the same thing." And I'm like, "Well, gee, thanks for letting me go back there by myself." You know, but that was one of the more intense experiences because you know, you're by yourself, you're not expecting that. You know, I'm just thinking, "Oh, cool, I'm going to look at this tree." And the feel of it was very different. It felt it felt like I walked in on a voodoo ceremony. You know, that's what it felt like. And so I don't know if maybe in the spirit realm that's what they're doing there, you know. Who knows with New Orleans, but I've never felt anything quite like that. And I felt everything on both ends of the spectrum, but that was very, very different. And I would like to definitely go back there and check it out. I didn't have a whole lot of time when I was there because we had to keep it moving with the tour. So unfortunately, I couldn't do a whole lot, but
Mhm.
I definitely want to go back there.
Cool. Well, that's a good segue in the next question, which is what is your bucket list item for,
Oh,
hauntings or whatnot? Anything that's nothing's off limits. There you go. So just if you not
Egypt.
try Egypt, okay.
I want to go to Egypt. I want to go, um, you know, into the tombs and all that. Like I've always had this deep fascination with ancient Egypt. And, you know, I've had a lot of my own past life regressions, but I have not had any where I was in Egypt, but I do feel that I was. And I've actually had several people tell me, you know, that I was like a priestess or I was, you know, something in ancient Egypt. That you know was very spiritual, and so that resonates with me. And so I wonder, you know, if I go there, like how that feeling would be, you know, what I
Yeah.
would feel like. But
It
you
would
know,
trigger
just
something.
yeah, for sure, you know, trigger that deja vu. Or you know, sometimes people are like, "Oh, I know exactly where that is," and they're just able to go right over there. So I'm very, very hopeful that I can get over there. I know that there's, you know, some issues with preservation and things like that. And so I just hope that I'll be able to go. I was supposed to go, was it in 2020? I was planning on going, and then, you know,
Yeah, everything.
2020.
Yeah.
And you know, I was supposed to go to the Hinsdale House, and I was supposed to go to England.
Mhm.
Um, I was supposed to go to the Arthur Findlay College, and that is they call it Hogwarts for adults, and it's this really intense like mediumship and all kinds of like cool spiritual stuff. And you're in this building, and I can't remember what it was. It's not a castle, but it was something. And I don't know if it was some like rectory, or I don't even know what a rectory is, but you know, it's in one of those really old places that's like 700 years old or something like that. Um, but I was supposed to go there for a few days for this really, really intense training, but 2020.
Yeah.
So
Pandemic shall not be named.
exactly, exactly. The year that we shall forget.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. I haven't heard that yet from anybody when I asked that
Yeah,
question, the
yeah.
Egypt thing, and then yeah. Um, so what's
Space.
the
Can you imagine a paranormal investigation in outer space? You know, trying to
yeah,
connect with aliens
that'd be interesting.
or
Um,
underwater, you know? That would be something that would intimidate me underwater.
oh yeah, especially the deeper you go. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
harder it is to escape.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so what's the future hold for you?
Well, I just became part of the Warren Legacy Foundation, and I'm
Okay.
very, very excited about that, because you know we try to help as many people as we possibly can, and I really love that. And Chris, who runs it, he's the grandson of Ed and Lorraine Warren. He's an absolutely amazing person, and um, I just, you know, really love his energy and you know what he's trying to do, and I really, really respect that. And I have a very good group of people that I'm working with, so I'm very happy and I'm very humbled to have that opportunity. I do have some investigations coming up. I'm doing world's largest ghost hunt on Saturday at the old Gilcrest jail in Trenton. great location. The owners are just absolutely amazing. So I love going there. I do have something planned in February. I'm going to Mississippi with my friend David Childers, and we're going to do some investigating there, and we'll probably do some filming. I've got a couple things that are also in the works that, like, I can't talk about, one of those
Right.
situations.
No, I
Of
get it.
course.
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
course, but I'm just trying to keep moving and keep growing, keep learning. I love investigating with other people because I love to learn from other people. I
Right.
certainly don't know everything about anything. So I welcome that, and I love, connecting with other people and getting to go to getting the opportunity to go to new locations. So I plan on, traveling a lot within the next few months. It's kind of like I travel for a little while and then I just kind of stop. And I also have a really good friend of mine, Jeff Hartman, and he's like super brain, and it's like he's got this Mensa level brain, like no joke. And so we're trying to develop some really interesting experiments that haven't been done before. So I'm very, very excited about that. And we'll probably start a podcast and start talking about that soon, and maybe, throw some footage of that somewhere as well, because we want to share it with everybody.
Awesome. Yeah. It sounds like you're gonna be really busy.
Yes.
It's exciting. And keeping busy is great.
For sure.
So yeah, that's all the questions I have. It's fun talking to you or listening. Like you have some amazing stories.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
yeah. So where can people find you, or just follow what you're
Well, my
doing?
address is no.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
address, social security number, whatever you need to put out here. So
Right. Here's my phone number. So, of course, I'm on the Facebook,
the
and
Facebook, yes.
yes, the Facebook, Cahni Konig, Cahni. My name is probably on the screen for everybody to see. I see some writing, but I don't have my spectacles on.
Yeah.
I am Paranormal Connie, spelled Cahni, on Instagram and also on TikTok. I just got into TikTok, and so I'm trying to do some stuff on there now.
Right.
So, and like I said, I like connecting with people. And everybody's welcome to send me friend requests and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, that's where you can find me. And if anybody wants to check out the website, it's sacredspacespiritualcenter.com, and we offer different workshops and things like that. A lot of the stuff we do virtually. I do offer hypnotherapy as well as shamanic healing sessions virtually as well. So that's really, really nice because we are not limited. You don't have to be in front of me to have an amazing experience. So yes, there's lots of ways to reach me.
Awesome. Well, on behalf of Talk Haunted to Me, I'm Reece, and thank you, Connie, for joining me. And we'll talk to everyone soon.